Good morning, Dolphins fans. Welcome to another episode of On the FinSide with Kat and Paul. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, all of our social media outlets, as well as the finfanatic.com website and the FanSided network. The Dolphins go to Tampa Bay this Sunday to play the Buccaneers. They're 10-point underdogs as of right now. And I'd say this is a must-win game, Paul, but here's your opponent preview, okay? Dolphins are going to get crushed. That's as far as I'm concerned. And it's been about a week since I've been on here. I've been on vacation in Colorado with very little cell service. Thank God, so that I haven't had to talk about this absolute and complete train wreck of a situation here for the Miami Dolphins, Paul.
Absolutely. And I know, what do you call it? I did the preview last week. I did a few panels this week, including one with Richmond Webb and the guys from DWA. And that was a good time. You know, what pisses me off, and this is something that I said on that panel the other night, it's something that I've said on a few different things. The Dolphins show the ability to make plays. It's like once they're out of the game, they suddenly remember, oh yeah, we've got Mike Gesicki and Devontae Parker, who they may not have Devontae this week. They start chucking the ball down the field and moving it, not against prevent, not against, but just, you know, they forget they have these weapons until it's too late. They forget to open the playbook, which sounds very reminiscent of Chan Gailey type of play calling. And they don't play to win until they probably can't. They just play to not lose, and that drives me insane.
I go a step further with it too. Is it's not Chan Gailey. What Chan Gailey put together was better than this, and it's not close. And between three people, you can't figure it out. You know, the Dolphins could write a book on how to not build an offense. Okay, think about it. Pick the wrong guy at quarterback, and look, that's more about Herbert than it's about Tua right now. Okay, because Herbert's so good. At running back, you have such confidence in Myles Gaskin and Savon Ahmed. Then half a game into the season, you realize, oh, these guys can't be on the field because they can't block. These guys have been on your team for over a year now. On the offensive line, you have the worst offensive line in the league. You had Laramie Tunsil at left tackle, but you traded him. You could have traded up last year for Tristan Wirfs or Jedrick Wills because you had the picks to do it, but you didn't do that either. Dolphins are smarter than everybody on offense, except they're actually stupider than everybody. So what they do is they try to build through the wide receiver position, but then that becomes obsolete because the quarterback can't be protected. The offensive line can't block, and the running backs can't have any sort of balance whatsoever on the offensive side of the ball. So, I think, quite honestly, Paul, I get that. I'm getting that feeling with the Dolphins and with Brian Flores and with this offensive staff that they've reached a point where I don't think they can do better. I don't have confidence that they say, okay, here's the problem, here's the solution. And I think the Colts game this past week demonstrated that.
So there's a few different things to unpack from what you just said.
Yes, there is.
First and foremost, we'll talk about a little bit of the offense and the play calling stuff. Like, it drives me insane that we've got two offensive coordinators and neither one of them calls the plays. Charlie Fry calls the plays. And then, as either one of these offensive coordinators should look at what's going on the field and go, the hell's he doing? You know what? Give me the headset. Give me the headset. You know? And if not, neither of them are willing or capable of, I don't care that Brian Flores is a defensive-minded coach. He still understands offense and should understand the playbook, or he shouldn't be the head coach. So if neither one of them is going to grab that headset, Brian Flores should walk over and go, give me that. Just give me that. Like, and take over the play calling at that point when it's, you know, obvious that the play calling is horrific. And I don't know if we can say, and this is not an insult to Tua or Herbert or anybody, I don't know if we can say we got the wrong quarterback. I don't know if we could say most of the offensive line sucks. Austin Jackson, we definitely can say does. right now. He's got the potential for later on. But and I don't know if they're wrong with what they did at the wide receiver position, because you look at some of the guys that we've let go, Jermaine Illuminor being a good example. You look at Kyle Van Noy's looking like Kyle Van Noy again up in New England. Like you look around, and Miami does a terrible job right now of utilizing their strengths and weaknesses, and that's on both sides of the ball. I mean, Richmond Webb said it best the other night about the defense. The defense does start out decent and then slowly fades off as the offense looks horrific. It is a letdown to sit there and go, you know what? Why am I going to play my nuts off when they're not doing anything effective? And you can see it's not anything effective on the other side of the ball. But at the same time, schematically, have we seen the amoeba defense this year, or psycho defense, or whatever you want to call it, the one that made them so good last year and so unpredictable? No.
You're right, and before we're each throwing out like 6 different talking points. And I started that.
I was going to say I was responding to your 6 talking points.
Exactly. Let's stop at one here. So, on one hand, I look at. I mean, there's a conversation about the personnel, and there's a conversation about actual play calling. And typically, when I know that if I were looking at a team in the NFC and I saw that they had Jacoby Brissett at quarterback and Malcolm Brown at running back and the worst offensive line in the league, I would say, don't talk to me about play calling. Like your team sucks. Your talent isn't there. But on the other hand, to your point, as far as the play calling, I mean, Dave Hyde said it best in his article for the Sun Sentinel. He said in the final minutes, Jacoby Brissett led touchdown drives on completions of 25, 22, 29, 42, 22, and a 21-yard pass interference play. And we saw this the previous week against the Raiders, where when they played aggressive and they opened the field up and then started handing the ball off, it worked. Why would you come out the next week and go back into the same stupid box that you played in the week before? I mean, it's embarrassing. And if you don't understand it at this point, get the hell out of here.
Yeah. No, and we'll take that, and you already know I fully agree. It's something I was already saying. And one of the points we talked about before too was the offensive line sucks. The personnel is there, and one of the things we talked with Richmond Webb about the other night is, have you ever seen a blocking scheme that doesn't account for a defensive end, right? And I know this is talking more generally, right? But a blocking scheme that doesn't account for a defensive end, let alone on a pass play. And he went, no. And so we talked about it a little more. And the funniest part to me and the most hurtful part to me is, like, everybody here knows I coach the little guys, right? That very same week, the next game that we had, a team lined a defensive end up wide, and we called a pass play. And I watched my right tackle go, better pick that kid up, and pace the kid. and my quarterback threw the ball at 9
and you're right. Richmond
and he's
Webb,
still alive. Like that, there's that.
Even at a 10-year-old level, you can see that, and it's good for your kids on that. And Richmond Webb is certainly qualified to talk about accounting for pass rushing and defensive ends at the tackle spot. On the offensive line, I'll say this, and again, I said before the season that this offensive line could ruin the season. Guess what? It already has.
The coaching staff's ruining the season.
Yeah, that too. But I will say as well, when you've got Austin Jackson at left tackle, he's getting destroyed every game. It's embarrassing, and you don't do anything about it. You get what you deserve. At right tackle, no, they don't have the talent at either tackle spots to compete even with a good scheme. But the scheme is making it worse too. I will say too that if you look as far as rebuilding the offense, continuing, I'm not going to say rebuild, but I'm just going to get that word out of my vocabulary. I'm tired of hearing about rebuilding.
Wait, before you move on, let me get back to that one talking point like we just agreed to.
Go for it.
They have the offensive tackles on this roster to be able to at least compete. I'm not saying you're going to send them to the Pro Bowl, but if you start Robert Hunt and Liam Eichenberg, you're at least able to do something there. Just saying.
You could. I'm very perplexed why the Dolphins haven't done that. It seems like every single person who watches a Dolphins game wants that, including us.
You mean going, these two can block, these two can't.
Yeah, right. It's that should be that simple. And the reality is the Dolphins don't want to play Eichenberg at left tackle, and they don't want to play Robert Hunt at right tackle. I mean, to me, it reeks. Usually, I'd say, hey, the Dolphins coaching staff is with these guys every day. They get the benefit of the doubt. No, that's out the window. Okay, we've seen Eichenberg at left tackle at Notre Dame play well, and then in the first game of the year, Eichenberg played substantially better than he did at right tackle this past weekend. We've seen Robert Hunt play 13 games at right tackle last year, allowed 3 sacks and 15 pressures in 13 games. That's far better than anything you've seen at right tackle. But the Dolphins think they know better than you on offense. And here's another thing too, and this was a great tweet that I got. How about instead of having 3 offensive coordinators, we also have a Dolphins raffle where where the winner of the raffle gets to call in plays to Charlie Fry, to call in plays to George Godsey and Eric Studsville, and then calls in plays to the quarterback. I mean, while we're being stupid about everything, we might as well get a 4th person in there, have fun with this here.
I don't know. Like, if any of those hacker groups out there want to hack Charlie Fry's headset, please feel free. Just putting it out there.
And here's another thing too: is it?
God, I missed you.
Is it specific? I'm pissed. I've got a week and a half of stuff to say.
Anger and rage built up.
I'm glad I was on vacation because here's the other part too, and this is what comes down to Chris Greer, who, as far as I'm concerned, based on what we've seen, should have been fired yesterday. Jacoby Brissett, you signed in the offseason, and Jacoby Brissett's only positive is that he doesn't throw interceptions. He checks the ball down.
He's got two
hold on. So because of that, I don't want to hear it from the front office. Okay, this is the guy you signed. You signed somebody whose only claim to fame is not throwing interceptions. So when Jalen Waddle gets wide open deep, twice in the first quarter for what should be 50-yard gains, and you check the ball to Savon Ahmed, you get what you deserve. You got what you paid for on that. So, and if you're Brian Flores, where's the guy who from 2019 is yelling at referees on the sideline when they miss a simple call, not sitting there with his hands folded or his arms crossed like Adam Gase?
Yeah, no, it's again several things to unpack there.
Sorry. Take it wherever you want from there.
Yeah, no, it's. I'm gonna go back to Greer. I can't fully trash Greer yet, but I can trash the coaching staff, and here's why. I watch these guys leave here and play well. I watch, and we don't. If Flores isn't going to use them or gets them out there and says nope, not worth a damn, and Greer ships them out, I get it, and I don't know which players Flores pounded the table for on this team, or somebody on his staff pounded the table for. So it makes it hard, especially when you see that the talent is on this roster to do things like what we saw at the end of last week, what we saw at the end of the week before they close that playbook back up again, and it doesn't magically open until there's 10 minutes left in the fourth quarter. Jalen Waddle, I don't understand hitting him only when he's within 3 yards of the line of scrimmage. It's a very confusing usage of the guy. But it's and I can't fault the front office for Jacoby Brissett, because at the end of the day, Jacoby Brissett is one of the better backup quarterbacks in the league. He's not here to be the starter.
Is he? I think he sucks. I think he's absolutely horrific, and they should put Reed Sinnett in tomorrow.
I would love to see Reed Sinnett come in, but if the coaching staff's going to call little freaking checkdowns within 2 yards line of scrimmage, it doesn't really matter. Jacoby
That's who
does.
Brissett is, though. I mean, things have to be absolutely perfect for Jacoby Brissett to have any sort of success.
Oh, I'm
And
not saying I love the guy. I'm not. It's like the two things he does well is not turn the ball over, and avoid pass rush because he does do a great job of eluding the pass rush at times. It's
yeah,
those are his two things, and actually a third thing is he does see well when to take off with the ball, and be
yeah,
decent with it.
yeah, he does. And yeah, see, I think he does a good job of eluding pressure and taking off with the ball. All of which don't result in points.
No,
That's
well,
and I just don't get how mentally a quarterback and a coaching staff can see something work to such a degree, like what happened at the end of the fourth quarter of the Raiders game and in overtime, where they're moving the ball and scoring points, and then the next game they're like, well, that ain't going to work again. So let's go back and try to win this thing 3 yards at a time. And after the game, Brian Flores comes out and said that our strategy was to be methodical on the game. Our strategy was to inch our way down the field. Fine. Get Dan Henning back in the building then. Stop wasting our time.
I've started to listen to Brian Flores' post-game press conferences about as much as I read the NFL Player of the Week posts that come out. Not at all right now. Like it's
now.
Yeah.
Now, also too, along the offensive line, this is the only olive branch I'll extend to that unit. Yes, I think that scheme is embarrassing. That's what happens when you fire 3 different offensive line coaches in 3 years with no explanation as to why. The offensive tackle spot, there isn't enough talent there. I do think that things are made worse with this type of strategy offensively heading into a game. Because if you see, when the Dolphins started going downfield, spreading the field, getting Mike Gesicki and Devontae Parker involved before the third quarter, God, what a concept that is. Then the offensive line suddenly didn't, besides Austin Jackson, didn't play all that badly over the last 2 games. I'm not saying they're a good unit, but they played better. You know why? Because when you play inside of a 5-yard box and everybody's charging the line of scrimmage every play, it's kind of hard to create anything.
Yeah, no, and actually that's another thing I'll say that we saw starting 2 weeks ago. Brissett threw a decent deep ball. Like, not fantastic, but it was pretty on target. And every deep ball he threw was catchable. You know who he won't be hitting with a deep ball this week, though?
Will the exercise bike Fuller is not going to be joining us here.
Nope, that's not who I meant, but him too. Jakeem Grant.
Oh, yeah, Jakeem Grant. We didn't even talk about that. Jakeem Grant traded to the Bears for a 2023 sixth rounder. My immediate reaction was, given that how Jakeem Grant has played this year, I'm surprised they got anything from him.
Little in the same compensation as the Pats got for Steph Gilmore.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But look, I hope Grant does well in Chicago. I've said before this year that I thought he was the best punt returner in the league, and based on 2016 to 2020, I still believe that. But in 2021, you have 2 rushes on the season for -7 yards. You have a fumbled punt, and you have 2 other punts that you didn't field that you should have. If your only skill really offensively is to field punts and you're screwing that up, now it's time to go. So I hope he goes to Chicago and he gets not only some looks there at wide receiver, but also in the backfield for him.
Yeah, I was going to say a jet sweep doesn't really work when you don't have offensive tackles.
Right. And we talked about, hey, Grant and Waddle should be in motion all the time. And I still think that's true. Unfortunately, when you don't block anybody, we've seen what happens. It's a 3 or 4 yard loss. And the Dolphins offensively don't throw the ball downfield enough to compensate for overcoming 2nd and 14, 2nd and 15. So I will say this. Okay. If I can put a positive spin on anything,
you can.
I will say that I do think the Dolphins got it right in the first round this year. I do look at Jalen Waddle and think, This guy should have had 4 catches for 80 yards in the first quarter against the Colts, easy. And except he doesn't have a quarterback with the grapefruits to throw the ball to him downfield. So I think Waddle, you can see, the Dolphins' biggest play in the first 3 quarters was an 18-yard catch by Waddle, which, by the way, Waddle caught the ball, made 3 people miss, and then got upfield down the sideline. It's clear this guy has talent, and I'm actually looking forward to him returning punts here now with Jakeem Grant out. Jalen Phillips played fantastic against Eric Fisher for the Colts. That was the only part of rewatching the game that I enjoyed. Him going up against Eric Fisher. I mean, he had half a sack, which, by the way, should have been a full sack because he got to the quarterback first. And then he had the play where he destroyed Eric Fisher, got the sack on Carson Wentz. It was called a face mask. It was 100% not a face mask. The ref had a bad angle on that. So it should have been 2 sacks. And then you had 2 or 3 other plays, too, that very easily could have been sacks. So he's somebody I'm looking forward to seeing here throughout the rest of the year.
Yeah, I mean, I do like both of those guys. I do like the little bit I've seen from Jalen Phillips. I still eyeball Micah Parsons and what he's doing out there in Dallas, though, and get a little tear in my eye. But no, I do like the guys that Miami took in the first round. I think Jalen Phillips is starting to come on. I do think he's been used oddly at times, and I do agree with you on the sack piece. But again, this is where I look at where I can't fully say Chris Greer is a dud, more so the coaching staff, because I don't think they're using these guys right. Could you imagine what Phillips would be doing right now if they were using that amoeba defense again? When you go from first and third down defense to last in the league in third down defense over an offseason where, what do we lose? Bobby McCain and Kyle Van Noy and Shaq Lawson?
Well, here's my question is when you've got $70 million in cap for next year, why are you getting rid of Shaq Lawson, Kyle Van Noy, and Bobby McCain? Now, Bobby McCain's not a big deal because McCourty's played well at free safety. Why are you creating problems? Why are you creating holes where they didn't exist? That doesn't make any sense because now you've expanded Andrew Van Ginkel's role to compensate somewhat for Kyle Van Noy. So what are you doing? They could have played more of that amoeba defense if they had a little bit more depth and a little bit more teeth up front. But by getting rid of Lawson, by getting rid of Van Noy, they can't do that anymore. And the Dolphins are also getting Raekwon Davis back here.
I'd argue that they should be able to because it made more sense for the amoeba defense with Andrew Van Ginkel because he really excelled in that. Jalen Phillips is one of the perfect players to be in that amoeba defense with his athleticism and intelligence. And, it's a weird... And Javon Holland can fill all the roles that Bobby McCain did in that amoeba defense, coming up to the line of scrimmage and still being able to cover deep. Brandon Jones is smart enough. Like, this is where I look at it and go, what?
So defensively, my biggest, by far my biggest issue is run defense, where the Dolphins have allowed 100-yard rushers in 3 of their first 4 weeks.
Rake Davis should be back this week, though, so that should help.
Yes, he should, and that should help. The Dolphins still allowed. Well, their first 2 games, Damian Harris had the big 35-yard run on the first drive, and then the Dolphins defense tightened up, allowed about 3 yards to carry the rest of the game. Same thing for week 2 against Buffalo. Devin Singletary had a 46-yard run. Then after that, the run defense tightened up. Then Raekwon got hurt in that Bills game. Last 2 games have been absolutely embarrassing on run defense. And without Raekwon Davis, and then without the Kyle Van Noys and the Shaq Lawsons of last year, what you're seeing is teams running right at a Landon Roberts. And, Landon Roberts is a playmaker. Don't get me wrong, and he's done a good job in that role. But this is the guy that gets steamrolled along with Christian Wilkins on those run plays. And it's
Landon Roberts is a playmaker when you don't know where he's coming from.
Yeah, that's an accurate way to say it.
And the amoeba defense does tend to do a little of that. And that's what drives me nuts is you look at this defense and the way they're lining it up, the way they're scheming it, the way they're running it right now. I can tell you who's coming on any play. And I can tell you where they're coming from. Because they're literally just walking out, planting their feet in the dirt and waiting for the snap.
Right. And I think what happened too is that the Dolphins the Dolphins still blitz heavy, but you look at the Patriots game, you look at the Raiders game, when they brought the blitzes in those games, they ended up getting hurt on it. And I think that may have messed them up a little bit with their blitz creativity. At least that's what I've seen. And then the thing is with the Colts game as well and one thing that I want everyone to know is that with a few minutes left in the first half, the Dolphins defense had held the Colts offense to 35 yards on offense. And look, if you're the Dolphins offense and Jacoby Brissett and 8 of the first 9 drives, you've gotten 9 or fewer yards on your 8 of your first 9 drives. Yeah, eventually the defense is going to break. You cannot go 3 and out on 8 of 9 drives. I don't look. The run defense is not good this year, no doubt about that. But other than that, I feel if you had an at least competent NFL offense, then we'd be saying a lot better things about the defense too.
We would, and I know we're starting to run short on time here. One thing I do want to bring up is I can tell you exactly how the Dolphins can beat the Buccaneers.
Oh,
you run that amoeba defense, and then you chuck the ball down the field. Tampa Bay's secondary is devastated right now and struggles. You throw a bunch of jump balls. They've got maybe Richard Sherman that's a jump ball corner. I talked about this with the guys on Pewtercast this week. It's outside of him. You put the ball up in the air, and believe it or not, I'm going to say a name that you're going to laugh at, but if you've got Preston Williams, Devontae Parker, if he's healthy, I know he's questionable, and Mike Gesicki, and you throw the ball up and you throw it aggressively, you do have a chance to win in this game.
Yeah, I'll disagree with you. I'll
disagree
with you on blitzing Tom Brady. I don't think that works.
I wasn't saying blitzing him per se, just moving guys around so he doesn't know who's coming.
I think Brady has seen everything. That's why I'm not sure if that strategy would work. And from what we've seen with the Dolphins playing Tom Brady over the years. And by the way, the Dolphins have beaten Tom Brady more times than any other team in the NFL. I think it's 12 or 13, one of those two. And to me, when the Dolphins had the most success against Tom Brady is in the Cameron Wake days when they were able to get to him with 4. Because if you bring 5 or 6, Brady's just going to carve you up. He's going to take the underneath route the entire game. So the matchup I'm really looking at is Jalen Phillips going up against Donovan Smith, a very beatable left tackle for the Bucs. He's decent, but somebody who has been able to get beaten. Yeah, and they got to get to the pressure with their front 4. And yeah,
Paul, they got to put Needham in for Coleman as well.
Yeah, and Nick Needham's having a really good year. And Byron Jones had an injury this past week to the Colts, but is expected to play in this game, which is good because now you're able to put 3 really good cornerbacks, Byron Jones, Xavier Howard, and Nick Needham against their top 3 guys, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, and actually Rob Gronkowski and Antonio Brown are not going to play in this game. So, yeah, and that's kind of the disappointing thing here, Paul, when I look at these matchups is that I do see some matchup advantages for the Dolphins. Mm-hmm. Not saying that Godwin, not saying that X and Byron Jones and Needham could overwhelm Mike Evans and Chris Godwin and Tyler Johnson, their third receiver. But I do think that they can definitely hold their own in those matchups, if not win them. And then on the offensive side of the ball, like you alluded to, if they're actually say, you know what, it's us against the world again, we're 1-3, let's throw the ball downfield. Yes, I do think they have some matchups at receiver, even though Will Fuller's out. The Bucs are going to be without definitely their two starting cornerbacks in this game. Sean Murphy Bunting and Carlton Davis are on injured reserve. Jamel Dean is iffy to play in this game. I don't think he's played all year. You could be looking at, Devontae Parker and Jalen Waddle against Richard Sherman, who looked atrocious on Sunday night against the Patriots. And Ross Cockrell is more of a nickelback. So, yeah, there could be those matchups. But the Dolphins actually have to show the willingness to throw the ball downfield.
They do. And that's where I'm saying, like, I don't think they open up the playbook until it's too late, unfortunately. But if they do open that playbook up in the first quarter, if they do push the ball aggressively down the field, if they can put Miami's defense in a situation early by exploiting matchups against the Bucs secondary, this is a situation where they could force the Bucs to be one-dimensional. Their run defense being an issue is less of an issue. And if the front four can pin their ears back and not have to worry heavily about the run, guess what? That's a situation where we can play the defense exactly the way you were just talking about, which is being able to rush the passer there with 4 and being able to cover and force Brady to have to throw the ball against Byron Jones, and hopefully Nick Needham, not Justin Coleman.
Yeah, Justin Coleman has not been good. And I'm
That's
actually
putting it nicely.
I mean, at this point, I'm thinking, God, how bad does Igbenogany have to be for him not to be playing over Justin Coleman? And as far as being one-dimensional is concerned, too, I mean, you want to talk about, I mean, to me, the biggest and most egregious mismatch in favor of the Bucs is their defensive line and linebacker group going up against that Dolphins offensive line. I mean, on the year, the Bucs are allowing 2.71 yards per carry on the ground and just a shade over 3 yards per carry to opposing running backs. So I think, I mean, personally, I think the Dolphins make themselves one-dimensional by just not running the ball, having no plan to run the ball heading into the game, unless it's Malcolm Brown, 3 yards per carry into the teeth of the defense. But this matchup with Ndamukong Suh and Vita Vea going up against the Dolphins interior line, major mismatch. And I think that's going to right off the bat make the Dolphins one-dimensional in offense.
It probably is. And the Dolphins make themselves one-dimensional. They use the short passing as their running game anyway. So it's, like the way to beat the Bucs is to open up your playbook and chuck it downfield. I mean, Miami at the very least should have Jalen Waddle, Mac Hollins, Preston Williams, and Albert Wilson active. And the one I'm interested to see is I wouldn't be shocked if they move somebody up from the practice squad this week. I'm hoping it's Kirk Merritt, but it might be your boy, Cat.
Who's that, Isaiah Ford?
Yes, sir. Bring the Ford out of the garage, baby. Bring the Ford out of the garage.
That would be funny if Isaiah Ford were promoted and were a factor. I don't see it happening. I'd like to see Merritt in there too. This would be a good game to get Merritt in there. You see if he could be that third receiver and move Waddle into the slot a little bit more. I will tell you, I'm just not sure what I'm going to think if we get to the third quarter and Mike Gesicki is being trumped in snaps by Adam Shaheen and Durham Smythe again. And that's again what happens to your offense when you don't have a line. Because now instead of having Myles Gaskin and Mike Gesicki out there every play, you got to have Malcolm Brown and Durham Smythe so you can have 7 guys blocking instead of 5. That's when people talk about, well, offensive linemen aren't playmakers. They take playmakers off the field, and we've seen that here this year.
But when Shaheen's on the field, they're trying to use him like he's Mike Gesicki. That's the worst part.
Yeah.
Like, they put the blocking tight end in, and then they try to outsmart you by sending him out on these crazy patterns and not blocking. Like, it's just it's I love watching him run down the field and occasionally just drop the ball if it actually gets thrown to him.
I remember a play against the Colts where they executed it perfectly. Jacoby Brissett takes the handoff, perfect play action, rolls out to the right, nails his wide open receiver, Durham Smythe, for a 3-yard gain. Like, oh gosh, I bet they were just shaking in their boots thinking about that happening. Like, Jesus, good Lord. So, but let's Before we get to our predictions, I'm going to say this, okay?
Say
That 1-4. Yeah, I expect the Dolphins to get crushed. I expect them to be 1-4. No surprises there. I will say that in 2016, the Dolphins started off 1-4, and then you had the Jay Ajayi 200-yard game, and then for the rest of the year, the Dolphins took advantage of a little bit of a weak schedule, and they just rode that Jay Ajayi train. Back in 2008, the Dolphins started off 0-2. They got crushed by the Jets, or lost convincingly to the Jets, lost convincingly to the Cardinals in the first two games of the year. Then they busted the Wildcat out, and then they rode that the rest of the way, along with their defense. That's what the Dolphins need here in 2021. They have to have something spring forward and happen, and that thing has to be Tua, and it's got to start in the Jaguars game. If the Dolphins are 1-4, they're going to be playing a Jaguars team in London that probably will have lost 21 games in a row. And they have a secondary that's allowing nearly an 80% completion rate. And you've got Tua coming back. I don't care.
Secondaries.
Well, that's true. But if you get Tua back, Tua is at least willing to take a few shots down the field. And that's when, to me, the season begins. Do I feel great that the Dolphins are going to come back and make the playoffs? Absolutely not at this point. But that's the thing. We've got to look out for the rest of the year. It becomes, is Tua a guy that's going to get a third year in Miami? Or is he going to be somebody that, look, we brought him in, he played a weaker schedule, he either got hurt again or didn't play well enough. It's going to be the Tua show the rest of the way.
Well, Kat, you remember this time last year, we were sitting here at 1-3 going, I don't know what we're doing here, guys. I don't know. And then Miami wound up double-digit wins and one win away from the playoffs. They start seasons the way they start games. Slow and uninspired. And that's something Brian Flores needs to work out here, is the fact that you've got to sit there and look and go, what the hell are we doing wrong that we play like trash in the first quarter? What are we doing wrong that we play like trash the first quarter of the season?
I agree with you in general.
Yeah.
I think this is different than last year, because last year the Dolphins, in week one, they got steamrolled by Cam Newton. Didn't know what to expect. They gave up like 250 yards on the ground. They also
what to expect.
Well, yeah. I mean, I can understand why that happened, though. Then in week 3 and 4, they lost to the Bills and the Seahawks, but those were good games. Those were at least competitive games, and against good teams. Losing to the Colts by what should have been 3 touchdowns and losing to the Bills by 5, that's different. That's why I say something needs to change here. But one thing that Flores historically has going for him is when it becomes this us against the world mindset, he can instill that into his team and elevate their level of play. But the question becomes now, at this point in his third year, is this message going to start falling on deaf ears when that starts to happen again?
Yeah, and by the way, Shake, we love starting our Saturdays with you too, buddy. But no, like, I'm with you, and it is very frustrating watching this team. Whether it feels different or not, every one of these slow starts, whether it's games, seasons, you name it, it feels different. And they all feel different, but they all feel like the same general thing, which is like, guys, wake up. It started already. This is not the preseason. This is not the pregame. Let's go. Let's get moving forward. What's going on? And then suddenly they wake up. Flores wakes up. And hopefully we see that this year. Because end of the day, it's really not too late at this point. Even for the AFC East is all knotted up.
Dolphins are in second place.
Right. Like,
but
how horrific is this right now that the AFC East is really truly knotted up right now? Like,
right. And my thing is if you're 4 games into the year and you're still, strapping on the leather helmets every Sunday and trying to play rugby out there, when you have a fast, talented wide receiver core, I question your ability to understand anything that's going on. That's shocking to me. And I mean, and where's Brian Flores? You kind of alluded to it earlier in the show. Where is he grabbing Jacoby Brissett by the helmet and say, "Hey, you see the 6th overall pick running wide open down the field? Throw to him. Don't throw to the guy on the sideline for a 4-yard gain." Like,
why would you want Waddle 50 yards downfield when you can get hit Shaheen at the line of scrimmage?
I see teams out there just doing this. I mean, I watch. Look, I'm an NFL fan first and foremost, and the Dolphins are my favorite team. That's how I look at. I watch a lot of football. Every other team pretty much looks like they can pull this off effortlessly. Throw the ball downfield, good things happen. I mean, I see like in the Chargers game. I see, hey, first play of the game, you have a 1-yard loss. Second play, there's a false start, so it's 2nd and 16. Third play is an incomplete, so it's 3rd and 16. Then Herbert throws the ball 25 yards downfield and gets a ticky-tack pass interference call, and let's go. We've got a drive going. Good things happen when you throw the ball downfield. They do. And it's shocking to me the Dolphins haven't seen this yet, but no, they want to play inside this 5-yard box. Anyway, I'm going off again.
Well,
Paul,
here's the thing that drives me nuts real quick, looking back at the Colts game. The defense, already disheartened by the offensive play calling, has a 3-and-out, and Scarlett jumps off sides and extends a drive. Colts score. The Dolphins recovered a muff punt, and then when the next time that they forced the Colts to punt, Jakeem Grant muffs one right back to him. And we all know Jakeem was a guy that, when things got down, tried to do too much, trying to provide that spark for the team. It's part of what made him as good as he is as a return man, but it's also part of one of the things that would leave you frustrated at times.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. And
but
to elaborate,
almost done though. Like, it's the defense, like stupid ticky-tack penalties on the Dolphins front, like ones that shouldn't be a thing, are devastating and backbreaking for this team.
Yes, and when you try to play football where you have to play 60 minutes of mistake-free football, it's not going to work with this team. You can't say, okay, we just need to execute, not get penalties. Look, a 10-yard penalty shouldn't derail your offense every time. You should be able to overcome that sometimes. They don't here, unfortunately. So anyway, Paul, we've got to get going here, but my prediction here, I'm going to go Bucs 34-13.
I'm going to go Bucs 30, Dolphins 21. I think they score some late crappy points opening it up against this secondary, which anybody could look at the Bucs roster right now, look at their depth chart, and just watch a game of theirs and know exactly how you attack it. In Miami, yes, the offensive line is going to struggle against their front, but Miami has the speed to get into that secondary very quickly with the receivers that they have. And they should be able to do that, and they probably will once it's too late. And I think Curtis Johansson nailed it in our chat. He wants me to be the GM and you to coach. So
I appreciate it. And I appreciate everyone joining us here today on that. And I will say this, if the Dolphins lose 30-21 and realize again in the fourth quarter, we can throw the ball downfield a little bit, I'm going to want everybody in the building fired on Monday. That's where I'll leave it at. And that's going to do it for our breakdown of the Dolphins versus Bucs matchup. I'm Brian Cat NFL on Twitter. Paul is fanatic_pick. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and the finfanatic.com website and the FanSided network. And if it's not on the right side and it's not on the left side, it is on the FinSide.